So up until this point, guys, we've modeled the crankbait, we've printed a prototype of the crankbait, and now on part 3, what I'm going to have to do is iterate my design and change it to the things that I needed to do. First and foremost, the Chinese knockoff 1.5 here, if I can get these to not fall out. There's a couple of steel shot in here. I'm going to be using the exact same ones, except I have some more coming in. These are just, I guess, for lack of a better term, slingshot ammunition is what I bought. But they're just stainless bearing balls is all they are. So I have one here that's little less than 1/4 of an inch, and one here that's a little greater than 1/8 of an inch. So we're going to look at both of those. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose to use 2 1/4 inch of the steel shot to see what happens. It may be too heavy. We're going to see. And the next video is going to be, that you see after this video, is going to be me actually printing several of these. I'm going to be putting them together. I'm going to test them. And once I get one that I actually like, I'm going to print it. I'm going to, I'm sorry, I'm going to paint it. I'm going to put some hooks on it. And then hopefully this snow in Ohio goes away so I can go over and try to catch a fish or two on it. So up until this point, if we look here on the, if I get rid of 1/2 of this body here, the things that I'm missing is those 2 cavities. You can see the cavities better in this side. Oh, sorry. There's what I assume as polycarbonate plastic that's falling out of this bait. I assume it's probably they're using it for rattles, or it was actually just kind of an oversight. And you're not going to be able to see it, but they're real teeny tiny pieces of clear plastic. But I don't know if it was an oversight or if it was supposed to be in there, left in there for rattles, but they're definitely in there. But these 2 cavities here and here, I'm going to model those into the crankbait. I'm also, I apologize, I was working on this, forgot to hit record on the camera. The spots where these eyes go in, these little holders for the hooks, they're going to, they weren't big enough in my initial design, so I had to go in there and change that. And I've already done that, so I apologize for that. But I made them all a little deeper and a little bit wider, so hopefully that'll work. So let's take just a quick second here, and I'm going to head over to Fusion. I'm going to model in those 2 sections right there. Again, I have a it's a little less than 1/4 of an inch. I'm going to use 1/4 of an inch for the openings. That way it'll give me a little bit of play in there. That way they'll actually rattle. So let's get to it. Dropped in the 1/4 inch cavities, for a lack of a better term, in there. One thing that I've noticed here on Fusion is that it shows these bodies out here. It looks like they're actually extruded through, but that's not going to be the case. When you print it, they won't be seen. That's just Fusion's way of showing you that it's there. And basically, it's just kind of a glitch in Fusion, but they will not be visible on the outside of the crankbait. And if it is, it's not going to matter, because I'm going to sand it down a little bit and paint it anyhow. So it's not going to be a huge deal. So once I have this, I've now got to try to find the buoyancy that this thing will have. So I'm going to do some calculations here. I'm going to show you how I've come up with some math here. You guys that are out there that are way better with math than I am, please tell me that I'm right. If not, correct me if you will. I'm trying to figure out how much weight it takes to sink this bait, because I want it to be neutrally buoyant. All right, so I combined all this stuff into one model, and I applied the physical material of ABS, which is already in Fusion 360, which, you know, all the calculations are already there. So right now I'm looking at an area of 11.54 square inches. The density is 0.613 ounce mass into inches per inch cubed. We're looking at 0.203 ounce mass of mass, 0.331 cubic inches of volume. Again, the physical material is ABS plastic, and I have it set to white right now for the sake of that. So let's see if we can figure out the calculations required to figure out how much weight it would take to sink this. So I'm going to look for some buoyancy calculations, and we'll see what's up. Alright, so after several minutes of sitting here racking my brain trying to figure out what this was, I was having some issues, and I think the issues are that I'm showing my calculations. So here's the thing. So I'm calculating the buoyant force that it takes to, that this crankbait right now is going to exert, or it's going to take to, the amount of force that it will take this to float. So when we're talking about buoyancy or something floating, the difference there you see is that you have the force of gravity that's pushing down on something at a given rate, 9.8 meters per, 9.8 meters per second cubed. So, after several minutes of sitting here racking my brain, I think I've come up with an answer, but I think it's skewed because I don't think that it's taking into consideration that this thing is hollow. So, let's talk about it. So, first and foremost, what causes an object to float? Well, that is the, if it floats, that means the buoyant force, or the force of buoyancy of an object, is equal to or greater than that of the force of gravity. So we know the force of gravity is a constant, so we're 9.8 meters per second squared is the force of gravity on Earth. So what we're going to do is I took this mass and everything from Fusion, and I did some hand calculations here. So again, the calculations here, I have a volume of 0.331 cubic inches, and I have a mass of 0.203 ounce mass and a density of 0.613 ounce mass per inches cubed. So first and foremost, I had to have you know, a couple of things. I have to figure out the force of gravity given this actual mass that we have. So I had to take the so I had to exactly right. So I took the mass of the object, which was the mass here is 0.203 ounce mass. I did some calculations to convert that. That is 0.058 kilograms. So I then times that by the force of gravity, which is 9.8 meters per second squared, and I got the calculation of 0.058 kilograms. So that's going to, 0.58 newtons. So that's the amount of force that gravity is pushing down on this actual model. So then I had to figure out what the buoyant force is, what the force is going to be forcing away from that, or trying to counteract gravity. So in order to do that, you do the exact same thing, except you have to find the density and also calculate the density of water, which I used the density of pure water, which was 1,000. Let me make sure I have that right also. So it's 1,000 kilograms per meter cubed for the fluid density of pure water. And again, we're not talking about pure water, but I'm just going with the facts here, or the end-all case scenario here. So I ended up with a calculation of 0.058 newtons for the force of gravity and 0.053 newtons for the buoyant force. So with that being said, this plastic is, the buoyant force is less than that of gravity, which means this thing is going to sink already. So if you threw this on there and you casted it out according to the calculations I've done, it says that this thing is going to sink right off the bat. I'm skeptical of that because, again, I think Fusion 360 is taking this into consideration of this being solid and not hollow. So I was wanting to try to do some mathematical equation here, and I guess what I could probably do is do one half at a time. That way we can see it. If that changes it, then double it. But my initial thing is that I think the way that I got the volume of this through Fusion and the limitations that are there, I don't get the actual numbers that I need. So I think the only way we're going to be able to actually, you know, get this thing weighted properly is to print many of them. I'm going to tape one side of it down with clear packing tape, set it in a bath of water, or a little, you know, cup or a tub of water, and I'm going to drop sand into this little by little, or I may do steel shot, but I think I want to do sand. That way I can actually measure exactly how much sand it takes, and figure out the weight of that sand and find out how much it's going to take to sink this. And then through the 2 chambers that you saw me just put into the model there a second ago, I'm going to fill those 2 chambers with as close to that as I can possibly get, because again, I want this crankbait in the end, and again, this is totally speculation, it may not work at all, but what I want to do is I want to have a crankbait that you can cast out and it actually works like a jerkbait, if you will. So you can reel it, it's going to, you know, it's going to hunt down to the depth that the, you know, the bill allows it to go down to, and then when you stop, I want it to remain as close to steel as possible without sinking. I don't care that it floats up a little bit. Obviously, I don't want it to sink like a rock. You're going to get snagged up a lot that way, and it may get to the point where it gets snagged up a lot. One of the things about crankbaits is that it gets snagged if you stop reeling. A lot of times it'll just float back off of that cover. But I'm just trying something new, and that, you know, it may or may not work. So we're going to work with some. We're going to make sure that we have some that work. If we have to, you know, we'll weight them so they'll actually hunt like a regular crankbait. And then some of them will actually, you know, I want to get on that edge to where it actually will dive down and stay in that exact location in the water column, which I think would strike, or would, it would trigger a lot of reaction strike, especially with finicky bass in clear water. So thanks for looking at video number 3 of the 3D printing a crankbait here on another line. Again, my initial scientific calculations here say that this thing is going to sink and not float at all, but you know, again, I think that's because Fusion 360 is not taking into consideration that there is air in here, so the mass and stuff. So if you just had this with no air and it was all filled together and you cast it or threw it into the lake, it would sink, and that I get. But with the air trapped inside there, it's going to add a little bit different approach to it. So calculations, as far as me, is my, you know, the high end that I can get with my brain. That calculation there is not going to work. So I'm actually going to have to go the old school route, put some weight in there, and actually see what happens. So stick around for video number 2. I'm sorry, video number, actually, wow, be video number 4. I'm sorry. Video number 4 of the series. What you're going to see me is printing them. We're going to test them. We're going to try to find out how much weight it takes. And then we're actually going to glue one together, epoxy it up, and see if we can get this thing to run. So without further ado, guys, we'll see you next time on another line. And if you can, get out there and lean on them.